This morning, I want to get you the very latest here on Tropical Storm Idalia, which is on the verge of becoming a hurricane later on today. It strengthened at 5 a.m., winds up to 65 miles per hour, and that movement is north now at 7. As the storm over the weekend did a little loop here and remained relatively stationary, it is now moving off to the north, and it will get picked up by an approaching cold front and trough over the south and a ridge of high pressure building off towards the east, and that will take it across the state and eventually off the coast there of the Carolinas. I want to show you a closer up look of the forecast cone. Remember, this is not an impact graphic. This is nothing more there than a track of the center of this storm as it moves towards the coastline. Impacts are felt way outside the cone. Let's look at the tropical storm watch that remains in effect here for all of Southwest Florida, going from Chokoloskee up to Inglewood. That means tropical storm force conditions are possible here within the next 48 hours, and a hurricane watch starts to Sarasota County and goes north through the Big Bend. We also have a storm surge watch along our coastline, as we can see storm surge 2 to 4 feet, especially out towards the Barrier Islands and anyone that lives in a zone A. 2 to 4 feet so far. The reason this is so important, obviously the damage, now almost a year coming up here post Hurricane Ian, and any shift off towards the east a little closer to the state, our impacts begin to go up. Let me show you how our in-house computer model is handling this. This is high resolution over the next 3 days, and the center of the storm is forecast to be just north of the western tip of Cuba, but that wind will start turning out of the south. That's going to build in the tropical moisture. This is a look at tomorrow morning. If you're heading out to work tomorrow, it should be okay, but boy, the weather goes downhill in the afternoon. We'll see those outer bands and the feeder bands begin to wrap in to the western side of the state. Heavy rain, gusty winds, gusting up the tropical storm force as that core really gets cranking here. A category 2 forecast to be a 3 as it moves northbound, and then for Wednesday morning making a potential landfall in the Big Bend. The rain bands will continue for Southwest Florida. A southwesterly flow will bring in a lot of moisture and keep our rain chance really high. To look at the winds, the National Hurricane Center gives us their best estimate of the wind field as it moves close to the state, and by Tuesday afternoon, that's when we see the tropical storm force core 39 to 57 start to approach the west coast, and overnight into Wednesday morning, that's when we expect most of us to be in the tropical storm force winds. The good news at this point, the damaging hurricane winds and the damaging tropical storm force winds in the orange are staying off the coastline, so we'll monitor that. We have one major hurricane already this morning, Franklin, as it moves north. Now Idalia is on its way to becoming a category 3 at least here in the days ahead. You look at the satellite imagery, we've seen this burst of convection. It started yesterday. Notice there's a void of cloud cover here to the north. What happened over the weekend, this system got just a little shoved to the south, keeping it away from some of the shear and allowed it to explode, especially in the southeastern quadrant. Now, as you look at the infrared satellite loop, anytime you get these bright oranges and reds, that's the cold cloud tops, the most intense showers and thunderstorms. And the reason you're not seeing them on the north side, a little bit of dry air drifting into the south. This will quickly move out and take the wind shear with it. And now as that storm moves to the north, the computer models are jumping on board here of a strong hurricane up to major off our coastline and eventually towards the Big Bend. But again, we have to watch this movement. We're all too familiar with these northbound moving storms. Their proximity to the coastline really tells it all. The GFS model last week was having a hard time organizing the system. Well, today the models both had data from the hurricane hunters over the weekend, and they're both coming into a little better agreement. Unfortunately, somewhere here in Florida, we're going to be dealing with a devastating major hurricane. As we look at the impacts for us Tuesday into Wednesday, the tornado threat, low to moderate, flooding and rain will be one of our biggest concerns, and of course we'll watch that surge out along our Barrier Islands. This morning I want to give you one check of the radar. Already we're seeing some of that moisture moving to the north. Marco Island, some showers and a little bit of thunder there off in the distance, and the frequency and intensity of those rain bands will pick up tomorrow and continue Wednesday night into Thursday, where we expect those tropical storm force conditions. Now, as the advisories and new information comes in, we'll bring it to you as soon as possible, and as always, fox4now.com.